totally didn't just read all the way through this many times without pressing record. Good stuff. Okay. Welcome back to the Commerce Collective podcast brought to you by Flywheel. My name is Emma Irwin, and I am a brand marketing manager here and the host of this podcast. I usually say that every guest is a special guest, but today is big. Today, we have the first Omnicom representation on the show since Omnicom acquired Flywheel back in January, which is almost too exciting. In this episode, we're going to cover what clients want. We'll break it down into 3 key themes, we'll cover wants versus needs, and we'll of course touch on what makes a successful client-agency relationship. You'll even get a bit of a glimpse into how Omnicom sees Flywheel fitting into their portfolio. Okay, let's meet our guests because there is truly no one better than her to cover this.
My name is Andrea Lennon. I am the Chief Client Officer of Omnicom. And in that role, I do a couple of different things. I look after our top global clients and accounts. And that is not all clients at Omnicom, which we have over 5,000. So that is more than a single person could manage. But it really are a select group of clients that buy a number of different services from us, a number of different capabilities. They're fairly large and scalable in revenue. And then for the most part on those businesses, we have what we refer to as a global client lead, a GCL is the shorthand for that, looking after that business and helping orchestrate our services on behalf of those large global accounts. And that community of people, and it's really just a handful, around 25 of them, they all have a direct or dotted line into me. And we gather formally with them. We do account planning and growth planning. We do governance. We do learning and development programs, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, their value and benefit that they can provide back to clients has everything to do with them knowing and understanding our capabilities, our services, our talent very intimately.
So Andrea oversees just a little bit of everything when it comes to Omnicom's largest clients and connecting all of the dots that need to be connected. No biggie, no stress. Before we fully dig in, I of course need to know what the last thing she purchased online was.
I remember, I think you prepped me for this question, and I remember thinking, I better figure out what that was. And I think it was a pair of shoes from the Outnet.
There you go. I like the Outnet.
I love the Outnet. Final sale too, and they worked out. So it was a risk
that's
I
the
took,
best.
And
Yes.
It was worth the gamble.
I love that for you. I am rarely lucky in that regard. It's always slightly too small, like to the point where
I know. It's a big risk, but it worked out.
I'm so happy for you. And now, drum roll please. We can dig into what clients want. And as a starting point, I wanted to know Andrea's take on what clients want versus what her team sees them need. Are there discrepancies there?
It's a great question. If I go back to, I've just been in my role for just under 2 years. So if I go back to the beginnings of that, even though I had been in Omnicom almost 8 years at that point, and I had been also in Omnicom in the mid-2000s. So it was all familiar territory, but even moving into the role at the holding company level and having purview across more clients and more agencies, it was absolutely overwhelming because once you get under the hood of some of these large global relationships, they're all really, really different. So it's hard to figure out how you can drive an agenda and create impact within these clients. And so that's day one. By, I don't know what day it would be, 180, 6 months. Once you get into it and you've had a number of different client conversations, you start to hear very common themes across them. I'm sure you see this with your clients as well, and any agency probably sees this. But from my perspective, what they want, the agendas as it relates to our agency services are pretty simple. They want our services to be easy to understand and easy to access. And that's because the marketing landscape is as complex as ever. It will only get more complex. It's difficult to keep up with. We're evolving our services, how we architect our brands, who we acquire, our consolidations. We can't expect that they're going to keep up with that. So they really rely on us to, I'm sorry.
It's all good. It happens.
I have to turn that off.
While we're here, darn cell phones. When was the last time you shared this podcast series with someone? Have you ever? Why haven't you? We work hard over here, and all I'm saying is a little love goes a long way. And I haven't harped on leaving us a rating or review in a long time, so please do that too. Thank you. Okay, back to Andrea.
They really have to rely on us to make sure that we're telling them a story that they can just understand easily and buy and grasp. And it's complicated on our side as much as their side because it's a complex buying structure. They may be operating in silos. So if you take a flywheel, maybe sitting with the sales and retail media side of the business, which is separated from marketing. So we want to orchestrate and centralize all of our services and capabilities in the service of the customer. We want to be customer centric. Yet, what do we really need? We may need to look at ourselves first and foremost and how we're structured to see if we can really deliver that proposition in a compelling and meaningful enough way for customers and consumers. So I think what they want is simplicity. They crave that in environments that are increasingly complex, both from the marketing landscape, but also from their own organizational dynamics as well as ours.
I am curious. This is something I observed when I worked in client services on the flywheel side. Like some clients approached us with exactly what they wanted us to do. And other clients came and they asked, what do we want? We don't know. Like, what do you think we should want? And so I'm curious from your role and a broader perspective, like, does it kind of lean one way or the other where clients are pushing more so for what Omnicom thinks is best for them? Or do they really approach with very specific wants?
It's a good question. I mean, I think when we get briefs, RFIs, RFPs, the asks are as clear as they can be. Obviously, they're issuing a brief around a topic area. Maybe it's a commerce brief. Maybe it's a creative AOR brief. I mean, they're clear there's a need. We want to change up something in our business. So with those briefs, there's usually some clarity. I say some because sometimes they can go on and on and on. These RFPs, as you've probably seen, they're 16 pages long and you're like you get to the end and you're like, what? So I think in that way, trying to interpret it, trying to get a conversation going with a client. Okay, here's what we're hearing. If we had to distill these 16 pages down to 3 headlines, this is what we see. Is that accurate? Would you agree with that? And I think the approach with formal pitching and briefs of trying to get tissue sessions in and trying to fit in conversations and feedback sessions, even if it's just the Q&A session and getting some of those key strategic asks out. Is this what you're looking for? It can provide a lot of clarity if what they're asking for is not clear. But B, we can also start to tease if the ask is clear, are we headed in the right path with our response? So do you want something like a flywheel capability plus a performance media ask? We can lead the witness a little bit in some of our question and discussion that will come on the back of some of those briefs. So I think in that way, clients generally know what they want. I think when there's not a brief and we're just in conversation and we're trying to develop organic opportunities, I'm thinking of a client right now where it's very clear they need help with their brand overall and their brand architecture. They've been an embattled brand reputationally for a couple of years. They've lost a lot of share. They've had a lot of product recalls and some issues around that. And it's just crystal clear to us that they need help with the brand, but it's been a process of helping them illuminate that for them. And I mean a process, it's been months going into it of, hey, we think you need help with, very simply in the beginning, we think you need help with the brand. Let us propose that. No, we don't. Okay, let's try this a different way. We have, a big session coming up. We're going to bring you some use cases of how other brands have solved challenges that are similar to your brand's challenges. We won't call it a brand architecture use case. We won't call it a branding exercise, but we will introduce inspiration through case study work for whatever. That's generally a very effective way to get clients nodding their heads or opening their eyes to, I think in some cases, they've articulated the problem as sort of something else. And when it's really clear to us, it's this. And then it's usually a process of getting there, but definitely bringing forward best practices, use cases, learning from other accounts. That's always a very successful way, or even just an evaluation, the way that you guys do right to win, for example, when you're just like, here's just straight up an evaluation of something we see, a missed opportunity gap is super low hanging fruit. It's low barrier to tackle this. Maybe it's your product imagery, or maybe it's your dealing with some content so that the Amazon algorithm is kinder to you. I mean, these are little things, but toes in the door, right? But that hopefully you can break open if you can do some pilot work and get some initial conversation underway and start to build from there.
Now that we have a better understanding of how Andrea is looking at wants versus needs and how an agency and client might be seeing things a little bit differently, let's head back to those key themes that she sees regarding what those clients want. We've already covered number one, which was simplicity, an ease of understanding of what all of the different agencies under someone like an Omnicom can do so that every opportunity can be assessed. But I asked Andrea for some other themes that she sees across industries of what clients want.
I think the second thing they want is to know that on any given brief or program that we're bringing the best talent to the table, that we have the right people for the task at hand. And that sounds very obvious and simple. But again, when we have what can be sometimes historically agency-led models, maybe the agencies don't even know who and how to navigate Omnicom to make sure that that happens. I think everybody always has the best intentions, but there's not really a rule book to how to navigate the holding company and what's going to be right for a particular client in a particular situation. So I think making sure that we always have the right people at the table is an ongoing ambition that we have and an expectation that the clients have that we're thinking about for them. And then I think the final piece is, I would just put it under the title of future fit. I think every client wants us to be helping them see around corners, is some language that some our clients use. They want to know that their operating models are really future fit, that there's agility and flexibility in them. And I think a lot of them want to be famous for something. Maybe it's innovation, maybe it's marketing transformation. And that is consistent, but different in the interpretation of that. So someone may be restructuring around integrated teams internally on the client side, and they want that reflected on the agency side, and they're very operational focused. There's other clients who maybe don't have that kind of power and influence in the organization, but want to leapfrog in marketing innovation. So if Adobe has a beta program or Google has a beta program, they want to sign up for those things. They want to be on the inside of what Amazon's doing next, and they want to be a use case and best practice for that and be able to talk about that down the road. But there's some risk that comes along with that kind of ambition. And, we have clients with appetite for that. So, and I think some clients just want to be famous for, award-winning, compelling creative. I can think of some clients that really are at the top of their game right now in terms of their agency ecosystem and some of the creative product that they have out on the market. And they really take the time to focus on building relationships with their agency creative leaders, working to make sure the briefs are right, of providing the hard feedback and making sure that they're really pushing and interrogating the work and getting it to a better level, and making sure it's very clear to us that the bar is very, very high, and asking us, to really bring it for any given brief. So those are the things I think that we hear consistently. What they need, like I said, could really vary. Sometimes they just need to hit some numbers in the next 8 weeks. And that's also a reality of trying to help them navigate and manage that and pivot in those key moments. There's a lot of headwinds in a lot of businesses right now, and we're hearing a lot of that kind of feedback, value, consumer value, making sure that consumers understand the value of the brands, and also helping them to continuously defend their marketing spends. Obviously, when consumer spending gets tight, it's not necessarily the best time to pull back. But if there's less revenue, the cuts have to come from somewhere. So we'll see that within the marketing budgets. We'll see that in the organizations. We have massive restructuring underway on some of our organizations. You'll see big changes at the executive leadership level, big changes within the organization, restructuring of their marketing teams, either centralizing or decentralizing. It sort of doesn't matter. You could choose one or the other. It depends where they are in the trajectory of their business. But sometimes the need is really based on looking inward first before they kind of look outward and figure out now, okay, what does this mean in terms of our partner landscape and who we work with going forward?
If you weren't already aware, Omnicom is huge. The number of agencies in the ecosystem is huge. The number of clients is huge. And to be honest, on the Flywheel level, I don't even know every single thing that Flywheel is capable of, let alone Omnicom at the holding company level. With overseeing client wants and needs at quite literally the highest level, I asked Andrea to describe the power of many partners with many capabilities.
It really is the power of many. It's rare that a single person is driving this conversation successfully. the power of a holding company really comes into play when you can orchestrate a diverse set of people and talent, bring them to the table. They're equipped with their level of specialism and expertise. They're well briefed on a client's business and what is the task and challenge at hand that we want to talk about. And when you see that all come together in a compelling way for a client, the proof of that is that they buy something. They will at least want another conversation with us, or they want a proposal, or they want to expand their scope of services, or they want to hear more from that person, or they want to invite that person to be part of the team. That's really the proof of what we can bring to the table, I think, as a collective. I think that's what the power of many. I can't take credit, and I can't remember who said it to me, but definitely came from someone else. So if they're listening and that's they've coined that phrase, thank you. But it is, it's an interesting, I think, rebuttal to maybe oversimplifying and saying just always being one thing anywhere. While it's simple, it may not be accurate.
The last question I had for Andrea revolved around what makes for a good agency-client relationship, one that can continuously grow and just bloom with success. I'm aware that the topic of this episode is what clients want, not how agencies and clients can work better together, but the two go hand in hand. And I'm also aware we have a whole episode on this, but at the end of the day, agencies want clients to be successful and clients want agencies to help them be more successful. And Andrea just brings in a wider perspective than many of us in the very specific world of e-com see on the day-to-day.
The clients that are the strongest are true partners. We have client relationships that go back years and years. They look differently, even if they've been a client of Omnicom, I don't know, for 25 years. They look differently today than they probably even looked 6 months ago. And that does not just happen. That is a lot of commitment and partnership and investment on both our side and on the client side in our relationship. So I think the success is really contingent. I mean, you get what you give. That success is contingent on the investment that you put into a partnership. We are going to respond and react to whatever a client wish for. But I think the patience of really understanding how you get the best out of the talent at the table, the experience of working with agencies, how to manage them, how to brief them, how to give feedback in constructive enough ways in that you're getting what you need, how to make tough decisions and escalate at the right moments, and knowing what those paths of escalation are instead of just getting frustrated and, just bringing in somebody else. There's a lot there on what can go wrong. But when we get it right, I would say these clients are very deeply committed, as much as we are, to making it right. They've been around. They know it's not as simple as just changing agencies. In fact, that can be the absolute wrong thing to do. They have taken the time to get to know their agency leaders, their partners, the people on the day-to-day. A lot of the time on the client services front, we've asked them to invest time alongside with us in vetting candidates and have some skin in the game and the people we bring into the business. A lot of our agency leadership is leaned into the relationships. So creative, executive creative directors, chief creative officers, day-to-day creative people exposed to the clients, a lot of transparency and visibility for our people, for their people. So I think the most successful client relationships are really equal parts partnership. And I can't just say it's all kumbaya stuff. I mean, definitely having a commercial underpinning that supports what is success for both the client and the agency is critical. Being able to evolve our services and capability and then being open-minded to that. So for example, putting a stronger data backbone, having a robust enterprise technology solution to run content automation off of. I mean, clients need to be open to these things so that we feel like we're progressing together as the marketing landscape shifts and change and new technologies become available. So I think that there's a lot to what a successful relationship is. And, fundamentally, there's a huge investment on both sides on a successful partnership and wanting to make that work. And so we're grateful for that when it exists within a client relationship.
It would have been a boring answer if it was just one thing. If you came up with like one thing.
But now I'm
this
self-conscious
is exactly
about
what it
my
is.
run-on answers. So
Don't be. I'm learning. I'm enjoying this. So I'm sure other people will as well. Okay. I'm going to begin to wrap us up, but I need to know it's a professional question, but like on a personal level, what is the most interesting part of your work that you see that you like go back, you leave the workday and you're like, wow, this is what excites me and like invigorates me to come back to work tomorrow?
Well, I think operating at scale. So that's probably a polite way of saying there's a lot going on at any given time. So no 2 days look the same. I could say I am never bored. And I'm lucky to have a seat at the table with some of the largest global clients, with our large and small businesses. I mean, incredibly talented people that run our agencies, that work in our agencies. It's just exposure on a level I hadn't had previously, working at an agency, obviously. So for that, very fortunate to come across the most talented people in our industry and be able to work side by side with them. From the client side, to have access, at a relatively pretty senior level for the most part, and just hear and understand their business challenges and try to roll up our sleeves and pull together the teams, the right people who are going to help them tackle that. And I would say our global client leadership community, they're really on the front lines of this stuff with the clients on a day-to-day basis. Sometimes I really feel for them. There's a no-win. There's always something wrong, something going to pitch, someone unhappy. They're like unicorns. They really are. And their passion and their commitment is inspiring, I have to say. I'm sure you'll get to know some of them. Hopefully you'll invite them onto the podcast. You'll hear from them directly, but they are just involved on these businesses at a level so deeply and broadly. And that to me has been very inspiring. I mean, I hope that we are doing everything we can to support them and their teams by extension. So yeah, I think it's no single thing for me that gets me excited, but really the people and the talent. We have an amazing executive team. We're performing incredibly well. We've got this big, exciting acquisition on the table as of January in Flywheel. So there's so much positive momentum at Omnicom right now. And that's it makes it really exciting to come to work every day.
Amazing.
I hope you're excited, Emma.
I'm so excited. I've never been more excited. I think it's so cool. And like being relatively young, I know like the career growth within, especially getting acquired by someone like Omnicom is very exciting.
I think we're the same age, so maybe we can,
Totally. Okay, my very last question for you is this is a fun one that we ask everyone. And something that lives on your digital wish list, which means it's just in a cart, like a tab on, or in an app that you never actually purchase, and why. It's just been there forever.
I'm going to say it's a steamer. It's not an exciting item. I don't know why I haven't converted the purchase. Someone made a recommendation. I'm trying to make a home domestic conversion from a old school iron into the steamer, and I just haven't committed. So it's been in the basket and the wish list for a bit, and maybe this will be the moment that I get over the hump and actually buy it.
This is the catalyst for change right here. Amazing. I think I still actually have a steamer, but I'm not gonna lie, like the iron works better.
You see,
it's not
there. I mean,
it kind of does.
Maybe we can just throw up a vote on this one, but the problem with the iron is I use it and then I put the clothes on and it looks like it never was, like I don't even own an iron. So I'm wondering if the steamer
Maybe. I think it really depends on the fabric and whatnot. But yeah, I'll have to I'll put a poll when I post this on LinkedIn at some point. We'll put a poll and we'll see what the consensus says. And with that, we have come to the end of another episode of the Commerce Collective podcast. Wasn't that cool? I just interviewed the Chief Client Officer of the largest media holding company in North America. What? Wow. As a recap, we just learned about what clients want and how maybe what they want is different than what they need, and how Omnicom uses the superpowers of its many parts to solve complicated client problems. Before you go, I don't know where you leave this feedback, but I need to know which is better, an iron or a steamer. I'm truly dying to know. I can't sleep until you let me know which one is better. Thank you again to Andrea for joining us. I have been your host, Emma Irwin, and we will see you next time.